Welcome to Sketchy Ideas, the point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate ideas around leadership, business, personal growth and development that might make you think twice about implementing that new idea you just learned about on the internet. We are your hosts. I am Michael Rampolla.
And I'm Brad James.
And today's topic is scale your sales team of one. Brad, how are we going to scale a single thing? That sounds like a pretty tall order. Who are we talking to today for this topic?
Well, we're talking to entrepreneurs, we're talking to solopreneurs, we're talking to small business owners, we're talking to technologists, innovators, really anywhere where if you are the running and responsible for generating sales, business development, if you're a nonprofit and you're the executive director and the one in charge of getting fundraising, all of that stuff, this episode is definitely for you. It's a matter of how you look at it.
All right. So if I have to grow and scale myself as the leader of sales, sounds like there's only so much I can do on my own, but you're going to help us find ways to be better at that. Is that all right?
Yeah, we actually have the cloning machine up and running. So I'm going to teach you today how to clone yourself. You know, it's not perfect. This isn't Dolly the sheep exactly. So you're going to live in everything, but you know, at least we're going to do our best shot. So we'll at least get a little closer.
All right. So in lieu of the cloning machine, wouldn't that be nice? Because I think we've all said that, right? I wish I could be in two places at once. I wish I had another of me, right? So knowing that is by definition impossible, sounds like you've got, I don't want to say the next best thing, but something that's going to get us close.
Pretty darn close. And honestly,
right.
In the age of the internet now, there's no other time like the present to start doing this. And for those of you who lived breathing sales and doing the sales hustle of doing 200 to 400 touches a week, trying to do cold calling, reaching out to people every way, shape, and form, today we're going to go over in high level detail how you can take your sales cycle and turn it into an automated sales machine for you through building funnels. So really, it's not really cloning, but it's the next best thing, especially if you're a salesperson.
All right, so you use that magic word funnels, and I heard funnels, I heard automation, I heard machines. That all sounds fancy, but we don't really do fancy here. We do sketchy. So make it sketchy for us, Brad.
Sounds good. All right. So if I am a salesperson, one of the things that I definitely need to have, no matter what business I'm running, is this thing called a sales process or a sales cycle. You probably have one, even if you haven't documented it. You just don't realize it yet, all right? For those of you who've studied sales, whether it's been Al Granum, whether it's been Dale Carnegie, Frank Bettker, maybe you've read Daniel Pink's To Sell Is Human, all of these different sales books, and there's some new people out there, Grant Cardone's a big salesperson. They all talk about sales cycles or sales systems in some way, shape, or form. The basic sales system really boils down to this weird looking thing, and you've probably seen it in some way, shape, or form. And I'm only going to talk about some of the critical pieces, but essentially there are all these pieces all the time. And this is for most people how their sales cycle works. They just don't know it. So if we look at it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 general pieces, we have a sales cycle, right? And we're going to go through this. In step 1, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about getting a lead or a referral into our pipeline. So what that means is lead or a referral. Now this, for most salespeople, especially if you're brand new in sales, you're going to be told to go hunting. And more often than not, that's you tapping into your network, tapping into friends, family, everything to try and get beyond the second degree of separation to 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 6 degrees. So you're going to generate a lead, right? Once you do that, you're actually going to get in touch with this person and approach them, right? So your approach is whether you do it on your phone, whether you do it through email, whether you do it face-to-face at a networking event, since we don't have those, or there's a lot of virtual events now where this is happening a lot, you're going to somehow approach them. And your approach essentially is your 30-second pitch, right? Why am I contacting you? What value can I bring? How will this help you? Let's sit down and talk, right? From that approach, you're going to ask permission to basically do a fact finder, is what I call them. Some people call these, Michael, what do you call them at Spherity? You guys do something similar. I know you guys call them specifically having to deal with like business development or inquiries, where you get to know the client before you determine if they are the right fit for you.
Absolutely. Maybe a discovery call or just an initial call, anything where, or a qualifying meeting, anything where I'm not sure yet whether or not they need the kind of help we can provide, right? That's basically what we're talking about?
Yeah, pretty much. So this is your way of asking the client's customers in order to best understand if what you can offer them will help them, right? So at the end of the day, this is your way to validate if your products or services will make sense to them. Now, once you've done that, this part essentially is the same no matter what sales cycle. And I boiled down the left side of our sales cycle to two pieces, just because you realistically, depending on the complication of the sales cycle or the industry you're in or what you're selling, you may have anywhere from 2 steps to 10 different steps on this side. But at the end of the day, you're going to put together some sort of proposal or solution, and then you're going to close that in some way, shape, or form and ask for the sale, right? And from there, then you jump back over to here because you're probably going to ask for referrals. If you're doing quality sales and helping people, they will give them to you. And now you spun up the cycle again. Make sense? So if we look at it literally as a cyclical wheel, all you're going to do is run that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Now,
so this is where the quantity comes in. If I just make more calls and just keep running this cycle, eventually something's got to hit, right? That's the conventional thinking.
This is the science behind sales, right? You run activity, you will get closes. You run activity, you will get closes. You run activity, you will get closes. Now, if you look at the math and the stats, yes, that works. There have been many, many bad salespeople who I've known in my career who they just run this, and they run this as often as they can, and they just through sheer hustle and grind, they make good money. Now, the challenge is for those quality salespeople, at some point in time, they learn or they begin to outthink themselves and they go, there's got to be a better way to do this, because at the end of the day, they don't just want to be doing sales every day. They want some sort of freedom, or they want to be able to scale themselves so that they can work less and enjoy the fruits of their labor a little more. Sound familiar?
Yes. Unfortunately,
if you're watching this and you're that person who's like, I'm doing this, I'm grinding, I'm making 500 to 1,000 calls a week, I'm getting in front of 20 to 30 people a week, I'm approaching those people, getting in front of them, setting a meeting, I'm asking fact finders of 10 of them, they're going through it, I'm putting proposals in front of those 10, 3 or 1 of them are closing somewhere in that range. You're doing about average. But guess what? There are only 24 hours in a day, and you cap out on your time, period.
I just wrote down grind beats skill given enough time, but time is a finite resource and I have zero control over how fast or slow it's moving and how much of it I get. So given enough time, I can grind it out and win, but I don't know that anybody really long-term wants to be, well, I don't know, maybe there's a few, but it sounds like if I don't know there's a better way, then I'll take that way. But there is a better way, and that's what we're aiming for today, right?
Yeah, typically there is a better way. And typically, once you run this, again, if you're doing this, step 1, if you are new to sales or you've been running sales and you haven't identified this for you, you got to do that first, okay? Because if you don't identify that and you're not taking notes along the way of this, where we go from here is not going to be as helpful as you want it to be. And then guess what? You're going to call in or you're going to email me and you're going to go, Brad, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't make any sense because you told me to do the next thing, but I didn't know how to do it because I didn't have the stuff fixed, right? So first things first, you have to have at least some understanding of your sales process. And you need to have some understanding of how you generate leads and referrals, how you introduce yourself and get in front of them, what questions you ask them on a regular basis, and most of the time what their answers are. Then once you have that, then you need to have some standard language or writing or some sort of shape or proposal that you're going to put in front of them, and then some sort of ask. And there's many ways you can close people. ABC, always be closing, isn't necessarily the best case. It's just a matter of how you frame it, right? So when I teach sales and we build these for our clients, we document this to a T. This boils down to a 2-week process where over the course of the 2 weeks, we're diving into this whole system and this whole cycle in depth. I spend a day on understanding how they're generating leads. I spend at least a day on what their approach is and the language they use to get in front of people. I spend at least probably 2 to 3 days on their fact finding. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing one-on-one sales or B2B sales where you're over the phone, typically this is where you're actually going to build enough rapport where that when you get the close, it doesn't even matter about the proposal. They're going to trust you as a person. They're going to buy into you as a person, because in sales, the first person people buy, as the voice of God will agree with me if he wants, is the person they're talking to. They buy you before they buy the product or the service. All right? So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to dissect this thing today in short order. This is going to be a quick overview because, again, remember, we only got 30 minutes, and we're going to break this down into some other details. And I'm getting a mic check from my partner over here.
So let me do this while you do a mic check. So the first thing I heard you say, and this is the let's prevent the angry emails piece of homework, define your sales process and the elements at each step of it. If I don't have that, anything I do after that is I have no foundation for any of those other decisions or evaluations that I'm going to make after that. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. Pretty much. All right. Mic check.
Mic check. All right. So while Brad does that, so that's define your sales process. So I'm going to do a review on those 5 points. So I've got how do I generate leads and referrals? What is my current approach to those leads and referrals? Fact finder, evaluation, qualification step. Then I'm getting eventually into that length of time, number of steps there to be determined. But then I'm getting to an actual proposal to provide the service or product that they need. And then ultimately and finally, we're closing the deal. We do it right. We're bringing that back around and generating new leads and referrals out of delivering great product or service to the person who's now paid me money. How am I doing so far? Lacking interruption. I'm going to say I think we're on it. All right, folks. So let's talk just a minute while Brad is doing this. I'm going to do a quick, we'll call this the sidebar. We're going to do a sidebar on growing versus scaling. Here's the real quick way to think about, am I growing or am I scaling? Picture a building in a city. Okay, you own a plot of land. You're going to build a building. The tallest you can build that building is only so tall, either because the local regulations are just sheer physics and engineering. However tall you can grow that one building, that's your ability to grow, because you have a finite resource, that plot of land, i.e. you as one person can only grow so big. You only have so many hours, so many resources at your disposal. If you can buy the plot of land next door and start to build another building based on what you learned from building number one, now you are scaling. And the number one thing that determines whether you can only grow or whether you can grow and scale is whether or not you have repeatable processes. So when Brad says, first define your sales process, lacking that, you cannot scale, period. If you can't hand off a manual to somebody else to do what you're already doing, your scalability is zero or approaching. So if you can't hand off a repeatable, measurable process to somebody else, then you're basing it on tribal knowledge and you alone. You can only grow so big. We want you to be able to scale, and that's the cloning that Brad's talking about. That's
right. So what I'm going to do is, since we're having some technical difficulties, we're going to boil this down. Lovely back and forth. So I'm going to do my best today to mute and unmute and do all that fun stuff that we got to do until technology decides to work with us. So with that, all right. You can see this sales cycle. Now what we're going to do is after we take all of these details and go through piece by piece and boil them down into the specific nuts and bolts of each of those, we're actually going to begin figuring out what is going on and how to translate this into a singular person and a streamlined message. And rather than doing fact finding, we're going to take out all of our proposals and figure out how to sell those things either individually or as offers, which is what is the beginning of setting up a funnel, right? And for those of you who are unaware of what funnels are, you've probably heard that term a lot lately, especially with the age of the internet. And what you'd probably be surprised to see is that in the age of the internet, we're going to begin looking at funnels from a standpoint of how do we take that sales process and turn it into a linear function, okay? And realistically, it's the same thing. So if we take that and we go, hey, step one, your leads, they're at the top of the funnel, right? And as you talk to those leads, you're going to understand. You're going to probably have an approach in there to move them down to introduce what you're selling. And then once you do that, you're going to have step three, which is essentially you're going to begin to qualify what you are selling to specifically who you are. And if you recall previous episodes, we talked about how avatars are extremely important. And if you're in sales, guess what? Avatars are also extremely important. You just don't know it yet if you haven't been doing it. All right? All right. So you're going to qualify them in some way, shape, or form with the right message. Okay? Then once you're there, you're going to position the offer, or this is essentially your proposal, in front of them, right? And then you're going to ask for a close.
You make
right?
it sound
the whole
so easy.
reason we do this, excuse me?
Said you make it sound so easy.
It is pretty simple if we consider it as being a simple thing. We just have to reframe how we look at it. So knowing that that is the case, and knowing that each of these steps along the way is essentially our sales cycle, the only difference is rather than it being a circle, right? Now it's just a linear function. Now, that doesn't mean that once they come out the bottom and they close, now you're just taking and dumping them back in the top with a different set of offers. So it is still cyclical. And when we teach this, we end up building this out. We take their sales cycle, we flip it into a funnel, and then we teach them how to automate everything to a whole machine. And what that allows somebody to do is clone themselves in the way that we're describing it here, right?
Nice.
So when we look at it from this standpoint, people are probably going, the big question is, well, that's not going to work. And the question I always ask is, why not? And realistically, what it comes down to is people go, well, people need to see me face to face. And I go, great. So as we do this, we're just going to do videos with you. And they go, wait, what? Videos? And you go, yeah, videos. Because if they're really worried about the personal connection, we're just going to put you in front of the camera, and we're going to make sure that everything you're doing makes sense. Okay? And guess what? I think we're going to be able to do this with the big screen. There we go. All right. Now I think we're cooking with this.
Yeah, looks good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so we took the cyclical sales process, turned it into a linear vertical funnel, same steps, and you're already starting to respond to the objections of the salesperson who says, I can't do that, which I love that you're pre-addressing objections. That's a salesperson talking right there.
We're going to go back to the same things that we were doing before. Sound good?
Works for me.
All right. So once we get them in front of a camera and we walk through each of these steps, leads, approach, qualify, offers, and close, now at the bottom, you're going to end up segmenting more people. And you're going to actually begin to be able to look at things from a very different standpoint than if you were running it in a cycle. The biggest challenge for most of those salespeople is to understand that, hey, I'm only getting in front of so many people, and I'm trying to match the right offer with the right person during that question phase, that fact finder. So if I use that fact finder as our center point to build out offers, and we begin to look at it from the standpoint of, hey, what if you could boil down that one product or one service you sell? Who buys it the most? They can describe to me what the problems are. They can describe to me what the challenges are, what the solutions they're solving with. They can tell me how much that person's pain actually means in terms of tangible value, all of that stuff. And by doing it from that standpoint, what we do is they've actually categorized and built an ad. This is why I look at salespeople all the time and I go, look, if you just work with marketing, if you work with marketing and not compete with marketing, you actually will help each other a lot more than you think you will. Because you as a salesperson are on the front line every single day of the year. You're talking to the people. Marketing isn't necessarily doing that. They're building automation. They're building all of this stuff for you. Salespeople are very helpful. We have to appreciate them as being one of the most admirable roles in any business, because without them, most businesses don't exist.
Truth.
And so with that, we really got to think about this when we shift from going sales cycle to sales funnel to automation. And the nice thing is that if we frame and we get enough imagery of the sales rep along the way, that close can be done over the phone. And then they actually get their face-to-face, right? Just like we're doing now over Zoom and through Facebook and through Instagram, you can have all of those conversations face-to-face, but you will move them way down, and then you're doing the important tough part, where you actually are asking people for their money, right? And if you do it well enough, you're going to have way more volume. You actually are able to scale yourself. And then eventually, now you've got multiple funnels going at a time, selling different offers. Guess what? You just cloned yourself.
It just happened? I missed it.
Yeah, exactly. It just happened.
Wow. That's cool. All right. So the secret sauce happens at the cloning happens not because I just flipped the switch, but because I set myself up to make it happen through all the other products. It's not a one-time thing. It's actually something that is baked in and built in at every step of the way. Is that about right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, if you look at each of these steps, it's the same stuff here. So you're running the same system. The only difference is you're positioning yourself rather than selling a suite of products right off the bat in that funnel. You're selling in a single offer, and it's a linear chain, right? And if you think about it, the reason sales is still way more effective is that you can actually go one-on-one and make sure that your solution solves their problem in that instant, which is why effectivity is much higher in sales. The challenge is time. You still only have 24 hours in a day, irregardless of how many of these cycles you run. So the reason I say for salespeople who are a sales team of one, if you're a solopreneur, if you're the CEO and you're running executive sales, you might have a great business development team or sales execution team. You're still only one person and you are still the face of that business. And if you learn to understand that I can automate some of this, I can scale some of it by doing a funnel, you're going to see over time, it doesn't happen overnight, all right? That's the one thing I do want to caution people with. If you build this, they will not come. You still have to do some other things with it, but you're probably already doing a lot of it. It's just a tweak in the methodology. It's a tweak in the philosophy.
Absolutely.
All right?
So let me grab two ideas you're sharing right now. It sounds like as a salesperson, I need to also be evaluating which stage of this sales funnel where I'm most needed. Because in some stages I'm not needed, but where do I, as face-to-face real person, add the most value? Which piece is either least automatable / where do I as the person need to be inserting myself because there's things that are nuanced or where I'm actually making a needle moving contribution.
Yeah, I think you hit it. So when you're looking at your sales funnel, you need to consider if there are points where I actually have to have a discussion. And this goes back to, remember, marketing is the shifting of beliefs. Sales is rapport building and objection handling. And closing is the rationalization of why somebody needs to make a purchase right now. And you can handle the rapport building and the objection handling through the funnel. You can handle the marketing of things, the shifting of beliefs in the funnel. The closing, on the other hand, might need to be done through discussion, right? So often, if you are in B2B sales, one of the things that they will say is that, well, this won't work for me. And I go, why not? Well, you got to understand, when I'm working with a company, I got to talk to all of these different people all along the way.
Oh, yeah.
And I go, great. Guess what? Automate it. Realistically, the way you got your foot in the door is you got a champion. The champion and you hit it off. And all of a sudden, guess what? They began to spread your message for you. So rather than looking at it from a standpoint of I have to talk to all these people, all you have to do is arm them with the tools that they need to do the messaging for you inside of their business. And if you set it up the right way, right? That's why I say with your sales process, you might have anywhere from 2 to 10 steps on the left hand of the cycle.
Sure.
But you can automate most of that. When you get to negotiations, right? Hey, maybe you've got a range that you can sell this for. Cool. Now you're talking about a big ticket item. Big ticket items still, most of the time, will have some sort of phone funnel on the back end where you're having a discussion at some point during this. But more often than not, you're not going to sell a big ticket item right off the bat. You're going to sell something smaller, something that is service-based, something that is very much an entry point for clients or customers, no matter how big or how small your company is. You've got a product catalog or a service catalog.
Right.
Let some of the small stuff pull those people in so that rather than you talking to cold leads all the time, which are the worst people to try and close and spend a ton of time on, not because they're not great clients. It just takes time.
Right. And my time is better spent on closing the bigger one. So here's another thing I'm hearing you say. Back to fair where I add the most value, it sounds like I also more than likely add the most value when it gets really big or really complex, which should either way involve really big investment from the person I'm working with. So therefore, that's where I should be spending my time, is when the sale, the potential outcome of the revenue, is greatest, and therefore there's where I'm most needed, where I'm going to add the most value because I'm going to get the biggest ROI.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
So let me add one other idea here in that, which is, I imagine some people, I know I've made this mistake, try to automate out of the gate. And I'm going to pull in an idea that I heard from Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, PayPal, a bunch of other things you guys know. He says manual first. You have to do manual first. And once you're doing manual first, the process that Brad, the grind, if you're a grinder, great. Now start paying attention to when you are doing repetitive tasks and you're almost on your own kind of autopilot. Whenever you find yourself on autopilot for a task, that is a great candidate for automation. But until you get to that point, don't try to build an automated system without running it by hand first.
You're totally right on. People often think technology will solve the problem for them. That's not what technology does. Technology is an accelerator of a process that is already well designed. If you have the wrong process, technology will not work. And then you'll be mad at the software company, mad at the engineer or the developer who built it, mad at your head of technology or head of IT for going, hey, I brought in this solution. When in fact, you as the person implementing what you're talking about in terms of this process didn't do your job up front. We work a lot with companies who go, well, I have a marketing person. And I go, great, what do? They go, well, they post on social media, they send out a newsletter, they do some PR stuff. And they go, is any of it aligned with your sales efforts? Is there any rhyme or reason to it? Is there any direction for it? Do you have goals tied to it? And more often than not, they go, no, we don't, because we don't know. And that's okay.
We're just running it. We know we're supposed to, so we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody told us we should. And if you want to hear more about shoulding on yourself, go listen to my other podcast, Let's Build This. There's a great episode on it. So
thank you.
But at the long and the short, it's why when we bring people into the agency, we talk about training marketers, right? Everybody has skill sets, but marketing as a whole and sales as a whole You can have the science of it, but the art is really what makes it super effective, right? And the art comes into refining the red letter language. The art comes into copywriting, right? Copywriting is a skill that salespeople could be good at. All they have to do is talk into the phone and do transcription, right? And you get most of the copy because you're doing it and you know it works. Right. You just have to do it. And that's where technology automates it. Rather than you talking to somebody and having to type it out, just speak into your phone. Technology, you did the tough work. You put the copy and you distribute the copy in a different way. Now all of a sudden it works. But again, technology, CRMs, all that stuff, it's why Salesforce, if you look at Salesforce, one of the largest CRM companies in the world, most of their staff, they've got a bunch of developers, right? They outsource all of their customer service to independent contractors. And I'm pretty sure their customer service department eclipses their developers because they have to. That's why they use vendors. That's why they use distributors to handle all the customer support and the training and the implementation and all the stuff, because developers are just building the technology. The implementers and the implementation is the tough part, right? When you're setting up an email series as retargeting, you can set up automation and hope that you go get that piece of technology that might have templated scripts, but that templated script isn't going to necessarily get the sale. It's not. You have to tweak it. That's like baseline template. People aren't dumb. They know that it's templated. And guess what? If you're doing good sales and you're doing good marketing, people know you're doing it to them anyway, but your offer is so great and your message is so like opportune for that timing and moment that they don't care. Like, that's what I mean, right? When people start going, well, you're throwing marketing and sales techniques at me. And I go, did you buy it? And they go, yeah, I bought it. And I go, and it worked. Like, so you can be mad about it all you want. But at the end of the day, sales cycle to sales funnel, your salesperson could be your best marketer. You can turn your best salesperson into an internet marketer if you help them design funnels.
Nice.
Straight up. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to take one takeaway from there, and then I'm getting voice of God saying we need to hit a wrap. So here's what I heard. Technology accelerates processes. It does not fix them. So if I already have a bad process, my technology is just going to make my bad process get more cycles out in a day, which actually sounds like a worse outcome than running it manually. I don't know. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Sounds a lot like money too, right? Money. People say money makes people evil, but money only augments who you already are. So it's one of those things where you got to think about it from that standpoint.
See also alcohol.
Sure, alcohol. We can talk about alcohol. You know.
Well, as an accelerant. I mean, it's. I always say, it's like you're taking off the filter, right? Give me more money, give me more power, give me more automation, give me less filters. You're going to get more and faster, for better or worse. Brian, you might not want to turn that into a quote. All right, so let me hit the close here, and Brad, I'm going to throw it back to you for what you want our number one takeaway to be. I don't know if you missed it, but we did drop a movie quote earlier. Brian, did we get anybody, by the way, on the movie quote from last week? Voice of God? Producer Brian? Potentially. All right, well, there was one in this episode as well. You might have missed it. It went so fast. But if you've been paying attention, you know the reference that Brad dropped early on. Let me hit the close and the overall. You just learned all about sales process, the sales funnel, how to scale your sales team of one with Brad and Michael and the whiteboards. I want to thank you for joining us for Sketchy Ideas. If you've got ideas for future episodes, if you've got questions about funnels, automation, cloning machines, or our favorite brand of marker, just send us an email at sketchyideas@ccmediagroup.co. And one of us would be more than happy to get back to you and support you. Brian, thank you for your support. Brad, what's the number one thing you want us to remember this week?
Just remember that your sales process, without this, if you're a salesperson of one, a sales team of one, and this isn't documented, this won't work. Start looking at this and documenting, writing it down. Doesn't have to be perfect.
I'm going to pull in the old HR adage. If it isn't written down, it didn't happen. Same thing for your sales process. If it isn't written down, it's going to be impossible to grow or scale it. So get on that, everybody. All right, this has been Brad James, Michael Rampola for Sketchy Ideas. And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it isn't worth exploring. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you again next time, everybody.
Take care.